All right, Canada has spoken. The election is now behind us, and the Liberals have won. They've taken on 169 seats. That's 3 seats shy of a majority. And with a minority government, the Conservatives right behind there with 144 seats. What is this really going to mean for Canadians, especially when it comes to housing? Ultimately, there's other political influences or other political spheres that we could be talking about. This channel is geared to housing and mortgage related topics. So what I want to do is just basically go over some of the formalities right now, obviously with this election for a lot of Canadians that are paying close attention. And there is a lot. I mean, just looking at the numbers, I mean, just alone, around 69%, almost 70% of Canadians went out to cast their ballot. That is a huge turnout. We saw that coming, but ultimately, a lot of people cast that ballot. Nearly almost 19.5 million Canadians cast that ballot. Really, for those who can, obviously, and that is really, really important because a lot of people wanted to voice their concerns. And there's a lot of talk right now about, what happened in the election. And really, I think Canadians have spoken. I mean, listen, Sean Fraser, the minister of previously the minister of immigration, now the housing minister at the time, like he basically wanted to resign, right? He was going to resign. I think he did. Came back when they reappointed Carney as the Liberal candidate to run as the prime minister, and he ended up winning in his riding. On the other side, we have Pierre Poilievre losing in Carleton, a riding which he's held since 2004. Absolutely bonkers, which means like now he's going to be like hovering around in Parliament. Like, is he going to be sitting in the bleachers unless somebody like gives up a seat and they go to a by-election? Like, I mean, really, this is the question right now as the leader of the Conservative Party doesn't even have a seat. In government, and what is that going to do, or how is that going to disrupt what the plans are? Because with this minority government, ultimately, in order for the Liberals to want to sort of pass a bill or a motion or something along those lines, to put it in real simple terms, they're going to have to pick a dancing partner. They're going to have to reach across the aisle and get supporters, because with this very close government, and the fact that the bloc has 24 seats, they're going to need to talk to these individual parties. And the bloc has already sort of given some form of commitment to the Liberals to discuss what's going to happen next. Are they going to partner up like the Liberals and the NDP did in the previous term? I mean, ultimately, that's yet to be determined. The NDP losing potential party status, which I'm actually, as I said, I'm not a supporter of the NDP by any stretch of the imagination, but it was nice to see the Canadians went on and vote and punished them and their leader, if you want to call it that. That's what I'm sort of hearing, for picking sides with the Liberals, basically forming that coalition, right? And this is by far the worst ever NDP turnout. For the party, and Singh had to resign after getting his pension. No harm, no foul. He got what he wanted. That's personally what I think. But now we're left to pick up the pieces here and how this is all going to play out. So, with Carney now being the head, basically the Liberals just changing the coach. The players are all the same, right? The objectives are all the same. Their mentality, hopefully, has changed, right? Their demeanor, but I really think they're the same people with just a different coach. Let's see if the coach can ship them and shape them up into moving in the proper direction for Canadians. And we're not talking about the woke stuff or anything along those lines. I'm talking about like actually policies that are going to benefit Canadians. The last 10 years under the Liberal administration of the Trudeau government, whether you agree or disagree with this, was basically a lost decade. GDP per capita, the growth of the Canadian family was basically non-existent. So for some reason, Canadians wanted to grant them another term, a fourth term, to see if they can fix it. And, I think that's literally, in my opinion, the definition of insanity, when you give or vote for the party that basically delivered this lackluster last decade. On top of all that, over the course of that time frame, they've made housing less affordable. They've increased the home values. So, like one of my friends pointed out, I was like, maybe, with this win, we'll see home prices come back. I don't know. I highly doubt it. I mean, we'll see how the next little while plays out. But if history repeats itself and the Liberals continue to spend and print money and run a deficit, even though Carney came out and said, Mark Carney's like, hey, we're going to build, baby, build. And all I heard was spend, baby, spend, and run that deficit. And we'll see exactly how that plays out into the Canadian inflation story. We'll see how that creates what that does for fiscal policy. Obviously we've talked about this on the channel before. This monetary policy, that's what the Bank of Canada does. And there's the fiscal policy, which is what the government does. And we'll see if they start to print billions and billions of dollars more now to run these projects. Which, speaking of money being spent, I mean, ultimately Carney ran on the promise of building more homes. Yes, he wants to build these prefabricated homes, which I don't think many Canadians in most regions would want. But ultimately, as I said, I'm in Ontario, we're in the GTA. Maybe that type of home doesn't fit. I've heard, through conversations that, and builders and developers, that these homes are actually, even though they're easy and quick to fabricate, they're actually more expensive to build in some cases. I'm not going to sit there and, fact check that. I'm just saying, hey, that's something to think about when you're building these war measures homes. Think about the vested interest of Carney, Brookfield, and what's happening here. The other thing you have to consider is that he wants to give money, federal dollars from the federal government. That's our tax or federal tax dollars going into municipalities to build these homes rather than get the municipalities to fund or find ways like Pierre wanted to do, find dollar for dollar savings. Not to say that was going to work or not, but to find ways to get that money to municipalities or reward builders that build by giving them more funding. Well, then we'll see exactly how that plays out and how that could lead to potential corruption in between municipalities and builders. Hey, at the end of the day, we saw what happened in Ontario under the Ford government. Obviously, they got pulled back with that whole Greenbelt scandal. I mean, let's see exactly. I think the jury's still on that. I don't know if they've actually finalized that, but I mean, ultimately, when there's money to be had, there's always going to be some problems. I think, especially when it comes to building. The other thing too is these egregious targets of 500,000 homes per year. I mean, we've been pounding the table on that for the longest time, saying that even in the best years, we were just under 300,000 homes. How do we expect to build 500,000 homes a year, whether it be purpose-built rentals or end-user homes, which I don't think that's going to happen. We have a slowdown in the construction industry. We have tariff scares, trade wars, obviously still playing into reality right now, even though Donald Trump is walking that back. I mean, ultimately, this is the conversation right now between, Carney, Trump, how this is going to happen. Obviously, at the time of filming this video, there's talks about easing some of these automotive tariffs. I really think, as I said, we'll have to see exactly how these things play out. At the end of the day, what needs to happen is Canada needs to try to avoid a recession. That's going to be very challenging to maybe circumnavigate. Maybe it's not going to be as bad. We cannot have Canadians lose jobs. That is the biggest threat to the economy, is Canadians losing jobs, not able to make their payments, especially considering the fact that many Canadians are levered up in debt and that they're basically one paycheck away from not being able to afford to pay their rent or their mortgages. And obviously that is changing course as the Bank of Canada potentially will start to cut a little bit more. We saw a pause. We'll see exactly what happens in June, right? We have the U.S. Fed meeting in May. We have obviously some economic data there. A lot of things to play out right now. But ultimately, when it comes to the housing front, the mortgage front, we're seeing interest rates rise right now, or not rise, or stay where they are. Some of those discounts on those products are not as aggressive as they were just a few short weeks ago. And that is strictly based on what is happening in the bond market. And we'll see exactly with the bond reaction now with a liberal government that's more inclined to spend than to be austere, less inclined to save money, less austerity, more spending. We'll see exactly how that plays into the future. But at the end of the day, a lot to really think about. I want to hear from your viewers in the comment section. Well, what do you think about the most recent election? Were you disappointed? Were you happy at the outcome? Let me know your thoughts. But until next week, make sure you subscribe to the channel, by the way, and we'll be continuing this conversation as we get more and more info on the course of housing and mortgage related topics. That's what we cover here on the channel. And just let us know in the comment section below what your thoughts were. Were you happy? Were you upset at the outcome of the election? Let me know in the comment section below. But until next week, thanks again for stopping by. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.